G'day everyone. You know, like many enthusiasts, I do like a good field watch. Yet as popular as the design is, it can get a little same old after you've owned a couple. But this offering hailing from France seems to have a few different features that make it stand out from the crowd. Alors allons-y and review the Wolbrook Outrider MecaQuartz. So here's a specs list of all the details, including case measurements, features, and price. And before I forget, if you enjoy my content and haven't had a chance till now, a like and subscribe is always appreciated. Now, I'd like to begin by saying some good news about the Wolbrook. There isn't any single element about this watch that I would call a complete negative, so I'm happy to report that there won't be a con section for this watch. Having said that, there are a lot of other elements here that fall under my mixed feelings category, and for some of you they might be a deal breaker. So let's start there. And for me, the most polarizing feature of the Wolbrook is the supplied NATO strap, which is almost a physical definition of form over function. Out of the box and into your hand, it feels light yet fairly sturdy, with almost no stiffness present, so there's almost no break-in period once you start wearing it, making it a comfortable experience. For an added touch of quality, the brand name is etched onto the buckle, and on the opposite end you have a leather tip with the logo pressed onto it. And that leather lining is also included on the keepers and surrounds the adjustment holes. Visually, this offers the Wolbrook a subtle touch of character and refinement, and prevents it from looking like just another ordinary field watch and NATO strap combination. But that leather has its drawbacks. Even after a month on wrist, and that's only with casual wear, I'm beginning to see some wear around the adjustment hole and tip. How well it'll hold up over time, I can't say yet. But what I will say is that the leather definitely won't be happy if you plan to get the Wolbrook dirty or wet, which means you'll probably want to source a different strap if you plan to wear the Wolbrook outside of gentle environments. The final issue goes back to that leather tip in its girth. It's so thick that you can't slide it past the spring bars, so in order to install the strap, you'll need to place it on the watch first and then install the spring bars afterwards, a la Marine Nationale style. And the way it flares out to the sides means that it has a tendency to catch on the keepers when you're putting it on or taking it off. It's not terrible, but it sometimes feels like an unnecessary and slightly jarring effort. So again, great for looks and comfort, but not overly practical. And that last comment kind of sums up the complication of choice on this Outrider. One of the most obvious features that distinguishes this model from all other field watches is the inclusion of a 24-hour sub-dial in place of the 6 indice at the bottom of the dial. And the complication here has been done well. There's a splash of red on the 12 marker below for subtle contrast, the triangular hand stands out boldly for great legibility, and the fact it doesn't impact any of the other markers helps with its overall dial symmetry. In terms of its usefulness, however, it often gets a fair bit of criticism, and I guess you, the viewer, will be the judge of that. But let's just say that unless you're stuck on the ground or in a windowless area, you'll have a pretty good idea whether it's day or night just by looking outside. And while we're focusing on the dial, I'll draw your attention to the Douglas text near the 12 position. According to Wolbrook's website, Douglas is a sister brand to Wolbrook, or more accurately has a mother-daughter relationship, with Douglas being the younger, and it wasn't uncommon for these brands to share parts amongst their watch models. And while that does explain the Douglas moniker, I'm not particularly keen on it, and I don't know whether it's because it's a single first name, or whether I'd hoped to see Wolbrook printed there instead, but this will boil down to personal taste. And the font print isn't that large or flamboyant, so you won't pay particular attention to it. Quickly flipping the Outrider over, you have a screw-down case back with a slightly hexagonal shape. Front and center with laser etching is the Wolbrook naming and logo, along with its specifications and smaller text running around the circumference. It does its job nicely, but nothing that'll get you overly excited. Powering the Outrider is a Seiko VH60 MecaQuartz movement chugging along at 4 beats a second, giving the appearance of an automatic movement. It's a simple yet reliable workhorse, and I'm happy with it. And given the price point of its Outrider, you can't expect an automatic. But Wolbrook seem to understand this because they also offer their Outrider models in automatic flavor, with the option to have a date complication or not, although the price gap between it and its MecaQuartz sibling is very noticeable. Which leads to the final mixed feeling about the Outrider. It's Hesalite crystal, and if you're not familiar with it, it's basically another form of acrylic. This means the crystal will be more resistant to impacts compared to mineral and sapphire, however, it will scratch either subject to light bumps and grazes. This video was taken just after I got the Wolbrook out of its case, as I wanted to show you how nice it looks before it got on my wrist. But now as you can see, it's collected a whole bunch of micro scratches after just a month's worth of casual wear. What exacerbates this issue, however, is that the crystal is slightly raised above the bezel, and the supplied NATO strap raises the case height to 13.5 millimeters. So this increases the chances of you accidentally knocking the Wolbrook against walls and other surfaces, and the crystal will bear all the brunt for these mishaps. But on the plus side, if you're trying to get that tired and worn look on your watch naturally, you'll get it quickly here. And if you get sick of looking at the scratches, you can get rid of the worst of it with a decent application of Polywatch. As a bonus, it also handles glare from light sources pretty well, so unless the conditions are blinding, you'll still get a good read on the dial. With all that mentioned, we can start focusing on the positives. And the first one I'll mention is the Lume. Now, I will admit it's not the brightest or the greatest I've ever encountered, but it does emit a healthy glow when you bring it indoors, and its lifespan is decent. Up against my other hard-hitting field watch, you'll notice that the indices fade out just after 20 minutes, but the hands hang on and at the 30-minute mark can still be easily read. Overall, I'm pretty happy with its performance. The case is brushed all over, and that includes the sides, lugs, and bezel. There's a very faint chamfer on the sides of the lugs, but you'd have to look closely to find them. The overall finish and quality is neat and tidy, and given this is a field watch, I'm happy that Wolbrook didn't try and get clever with their design and kept the case as utilitarian as possible. Another bonus is the inclusion of drilled lugs to make the task of swapping straps a cinch. Better still, Wolbrook includes 2 sets of quick-release spring bars, so putting the stock strap on is an even easier, toolless experience, so bonus points for thoughtfulness. The screw-down crown is signed with the Wolbrook logo, and its operation is an absolute pleasure. It unthreads and screws without any hitches, and because there's only one complication to worry about that's already tied in with the hand placement, you don't have to fret over crown positioning much. The hands spin with a nice blend of ease and firmness, and they stay put when you push the crown back in. It's so good, if this were an automatic watch, I swear the process of setting the time would be an enjoyable experience in itself. And that crown, along with the case back, contribute to the Outrider's 120 meters of water resistance. It's an oddly specific number, but if it holds true, it means it'll be more than capable of snorkeling depths, but still far from being a diver. But outside of a deep blue sea, it should survive other water activities just fine. The case dimensions make the Wolbrook an accessible and comfortable watch to wear for most. The case height is a bit much for the supplied strap, but if you can source an alternative and wear it without the added bulk, it shrinks it back to just over 12 millimeters, which is more manageable. With a case diameter of 37.5 millimeters and lug to lug at just over 46, it makes it accessible for nearly every wrist size. Although with the thicker bezel and smaller dial size at nearly 31 millimeters, the Outrider looks like it swings more towards a 37mm appearance. So this translates well for those that are looking for a watch that lands somewhere in between the small to medium sized category. Looking at the dial, and there's no mistake that it definitely is a field watch, but it's one that I've found to be a lot more interesting to behold. I mean, yes, you have the same old minute track on the outer edge with Lume dots at every 5-minute point, save for the minuscule triangle at 12, and printed Arabic numerals at every hour point, sans the number 6. And with the exception of that 24-hour complication, everything else looks uniform until you look closer. Those inner dial numerals that normally indicate 24-hour time act as a 5-minute interval tracker, almost like a reverse B-type Flieger. Each hand shape is different too, with the hour hand looking like a short baton and the minute hand a slimmer sword shape. The different styles put me off initially, but I've grown to appreciate it more, especially as it helps with orientation. The seconds hand is an arrow-shaped end, but also includes a thin red tip, which provides a very, very subtle pinch of color to what is otherwise a utilitarian dial. Admittedly, with all of these features and that large 24-hour subdial at the bottom, some may argue this dial might be a little too busy, but for me, I think it's fine, as it's the main indices, and especially those large cardinal numbers, that will capture your attention. And there's just enough free space in the dial center to prevent the text from looking too squishy. Although one part I wish they had made a little more prominent is the France text at the very bottom of the dial. Not a big deal, but if this dial could speak and it was asked where it was assembled, its France reply would look or sound like a mutter than a boast. But this, again, is more of a preference. Yet as much as I love this Wolbrook offering, we do have to look at one more element, the price. At around $220 to $225 US, I still think the Wolbrook represents good value for money given its quality, aesthetic, and nation of assembly. But at this price, the Outrider is competing against plenty of field watch contenders out there, and that includes AliExpress offerings such as Boltani that include sapphire, crystal, and automatic movements, and even Seiko Fires that have arguably stronger Lume, in-house automatic movements, and brand cachet behind them. So if any of those features or claims hold more importance to you, or if you still want your watch to look schmickety-schmoo after a hard day's work without the crystal being peppered with scratches, this Wolbrook might not be for you. But given that the Outrider possesses a lot of strengths and nothing bad to speak of, It's a watch I'd happily recommend to others and is one that I'm really enamored with. It has universal dimensions, vintage feel and vibes, tool watch capabilities, and a design that's familiar but different enough to look almost one of a kind. And if you're looking for a watch that can tick all of those boxes I've mentioned, I'd say look no further. But if I could change one thing with the Outrider, I'd probably ditch the leather trim on the strap and keep it purely nylon so it can be used as a proper beater and to avoid fumbling with that tip. And if you feel that might be a sticking point, you can spend a little extra and opt for a bracelet, or swap it out for your favorite strap. With a 20mm lug width, you'll have tons of choices. If you currently have previously owned a Wolbrook timepiece, I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. But that's it for now, and thanks for watching, eh?